So, we're going to explore just why the United States is the most dangerous place in the developed world to have a baby. And as you know, maternal mortality has been rising in the United States. This is an exception and is different than the rest of the world. And so now we're at a point where an American mom who is having a baby today is 50% more likely to die during childbirth than her own mother was. So, some of the reasons that people use to explain this phenomenon are as shown on the screen. And we're going to start with the first one. So, half of US pregnancies are unplanned. Okay, so that is very true. Half of US pregnancies are unplanned, and this is more common in lower socioeconomic status. This is more common amongst women of color. But let's look at the statistics and think about this critically. So between 2005 and 2014, the US maternal mortality rate has increased in just about every population. And if we look at the statistics for unplanned pregnancy rates, we know that they have actually been dropping. And in 2011, it was actually at the lowest rate since at least 1981. So if even though half of all pregnancies are unplanned, if that rate has been decreasing at the same time that maternal mortality rate is increasing, that probably isn't a great explanation for why we have such horrible statistics. All right, so the next reason, it's very common to, of course, blame the individual for their own health issues. And so people tend to offer up the explanation that it's because we have aging mothers, they're having babies too late, they're waiting to give birth. And also we have unhealthy mothers who are struggling with health issues. So let's think about these. All right, if we look at maternal mortality rates as compared to age amongst different populations within the United States, we see that for white mothers, there is an increased rate of maternal mortality generally in the teen years, and then that decreases. And then it starts increasing. And so if we were looking at this on a graph, we would have kind of a linear or a U shape to the curve. And then that tends to be true for most of the population in the United States. For Black mothers, there is no age where it's safe to have a baby. A lot of the maternal mortality rate is not shared equally amongst different populations. And while it's true that, there is an increase in maternal mortality rate as we get past the age of 35 for everyone, but definitely more than 39 for everyone. These, statistics aren't equally shared, and we don't see that linear relationship except for in Black mothers. And on this chart, it does say Hispanic, but usually if you look at it per year, this is more consistent with the relationship between age and maternal mortality. And so why do we see this different relationship? It's thought to be due to something called weathering or allostatic load, or that wear and tear effect. And so because of racism, because of anti-Blackness, because of anti-Blackness intersecting with patriarchy and socioeconomics and everything else, maternal mortality rates just increase with age with our Black population. Okay, so maybe it's an age thing. And we definitely know that comorbidities pre-pregnancy impair the processes of a healthy pregnancy. So they might impair the placenta. They might impair or stress the heart even more. They might trigger inflammation that will have an impact on infant and maternal mortality. And of course, this impact on infant mortality or morbidity will have an impact on the infant's developmental risk of or risk for developing all of these diseases later on. So, okay, so maybe, we're just kind of transmitting this risk, right? Okay, reasonable hypotheses. But let's look at a couple of other countries. So here's the key to the images that we are going to be looking at. There are a couple of ways to measure maternal mortality statistics. And so you're going to see a couple of different arrows. If they're increasing, decreasing, decreasing. And then you're going to see these petals. The first petal on the left is referring to diabetes rates among childbearing age women. And so the first number will be the number, the rate in 1990, the second in 2017. The outline is the average across the 10 countries that we are going to look at. The middle petal is the average age of women at childbirth. And so you're going to see from in 1970 versus 2016. And then you're also going to see the percentage of female population classified as overweight, 1990 versus 2016, and then the GDP of the country. So when we compare these, the statistics tend to overlap. They tend to agree with each other, except for maybe Luxembourg. But in all of these countries, most of the statistics indicate that maternal mortality rates have been decreasing. So let's look at the health of their population. Diabetes has been increasing in every single one of these countries. Percentage of female population that is overweight has been increasing in every single one of these countries. And the average age of a woman when she gives birth is increasing in every country. And you can see these are like in their 30s. So in these countries, at least, it doesn't seem to have a relationship. So let's look at ours, and we're going to compare ourselves to other countries that have similar GDP, as you can see at the bottom. And the first thing that you might notice is now we had to change the scale because we are so, high that we had to shrink everyone else. So the other thing that you will see, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, is that our measurements don't really overlap like everyone else's. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But these countries have had a decrease in their maternal mortality rate, no matter how they were measured. Ours, the only consistency is that they have both gone up. And as you can see, there has been an increase in diabetes, overweight, and the age of mothers in all of these countries. So, and you can also see that 29 is the average age, whereas that's younger than any of the countries that we've looked at. So it's unlikely that it's our, exceptional maternal mortality rates are due to aging moms who are unhealthy when they have their babies. Yes, that could play a role, especially at the individual level. On a population level, it's doubtful. We probably have other issues. All right, so you notice that the measurements don't overlap in our case, and that is because we have so many different ways of measuring it, and we have so many different maternal mortality rates depending on who is reporting on it, but also it's because we don't track it very well. So the purple states are the states that actually had a pregnancy question included in their state death certificate. And this is changing. More people are tracking it, but if you don't see it, If you don't measure it, there's no issue. If we don't measure and track it in a consistent way, then it's going to be hard to figure out what works and what doesn't. So we know that it's not, our maternal mortality rates are probably not due to the unplanned pregnancies. They're not due to these aging mothers who are obese and sick. And so we have some other options. Our high C-section rates, our fragmented health systems, and racial inequities. And so the next talk, we're going to talk about C-sections and why those can be harmful to maternal and infant health.